Hey guys, BaoZakeruga here. Today I'm going to be counting down all the games I beat in 2016. Now these games are not going to be listed in the order that I like them in the most. They're actually listed for the most part in order that I beat them last year. And this list is also going to have games that didn't have a definite ending, but I put enough time into where I thought I got the full experience from it. So something like an MMO or a MOBA will be eligible for this list. And with that out the way, here are the games I beat in 2016. The first game I beat in 2016 was the final game I played of 2015, Xenoblade Chronicles X. People like the crap on the Wii U as a console, but I actually really like it. One big part of that is the amazing first and second party games, Xenoblade Chronicles X being a prime example. I said it a million times by now on the channel, but for those that may not know, Xenogears is my favorite game of all time, with Xenoblade Chronicles also being one of my favorite games ever. Because of this, I had big expectations going into Xenoblade Chronicles X. And I say that most of them were met. I put 100 hours into this game without getting bored, and absolutely loved my time on Planet Mira. The only problems I had with the game were the underdeveloped characters and the subpar plot, which is unfortunately what I was looking forward to the most. But still, the other parts of the game like the music and the combat help pick up the slack. But it doesn't change the fact that Xenoblade Chronicles X was a great game that could have been an amazing one. Now, I know I'm sounding a bit negative here, but remember that I said I did put 100 hours into this game and still enjoyed the hell out of it. Tetsuya Takahashi and his team developed a game that I'm sure I'll never forget, and I'm more than happy to count it as one of my favorite games of the past few years. Some of my oldest followers might know that I've actually been a big professional wrestling fan throughout my entire life. I grew up during the Attitude Era, what used to be known as WWF, and while I may not watch wrestling as religiously as I used to, my love for the business is still there. In addition to loving the real-life business, I've always loved the games. No Mercy for the Nintendo 64 is still considered by many, including myself, to be one of the best, if not the best, wrestling game ever, and there's been countless other great games over the years like Day of Reckoning, SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, and WWE 13. So I took the plunge of buying WWE 2K16 when it came to Steam, not knowing too much about it. And I'm sad to say that my overall experience with the game has been nothing short of disappointing. Gone are the days of these games being arcade wrestling games, as 2K16 is more of a wrestling simulator. What I mean by that is the game tries to follow the flow of a real life wrestling match. Now that might sound good on paper, but when applied to a video game that's supposed to achieve the main objective of being fun, it hurts the overall experience. Matches start off slow, and the stamina system makes it so that you're forced to play more defensively and be more conservative with the wide array of moves at your disposal. Add in the fact that so many match types are missing, the customization of rules is pretty much non-existent, the game was broken for so long on Steam to the point where I could rarely even play, and you'll see why this is one of the few games where I can say I truly regret buying it. I am a massive Digimon fan. It was my favorite show as a child. I love most of the games I've played, and I recently rewatched the shows, reinvigorating my love for the franchise even more. So of course my hype was through the roof for Digimon Stories Cyrus Sleuth. The only problem was, it wasn't clear whether this game would be even getting localized or not. Bandai Namco's European manager Ishak Ravi went to Twitter saying that if a petition reached 50,000 signatures, then the discussion for the game's localization would start in the company. Even with the goal reached, however, there was no word of localization for the game. That is until July of 2015, when Namco Bandai decided to stop being a tease and told us that the game would not only be coming to the West, but would be getting an updated version for the PS4. Skip forward to February 2nd of 2016, I finally had my hands on the game, and I absolutely loved it. That's not only a Digimon fan, but a fan of RPGs. This game was pretty much everything I wanted. That's not to say the game is perfect, it's most certainly not. But a 60-hour Digimon adventure with an actual developed plot and conventional RPG mechanics made for an experience I always wanted and finally received. Cyrus Sleuth is a spiritual successor to the DS Digimon RPGs, and went the extra step to be ambitious with its presentation and plot. And it was a step in the right direction. I hope Bandai Namco builds off this and gives us a Digimon game that blows even Cyrus Sleuth out of the water someday. This entry has a tiny story behind it. I actually played Zone of the Enders originally back in 2001. The PS2 was still pretty new and the hottest piece of technology on the market, and my friend had just got one for Christmas. I went over to his house and he had a little disc titled Jam Pack Summer 2001. It was a demo disc, and on this disc was a game titled Zone of the Enders that would soon change the way I looked at games as a whole. For the entire time that intro played, I was glued to my friend's TV screen. It wasn't like anything I'd ever seen in the game before. These soldiers were attacking some space colony and flying mechs while this kid was trying to get away. And then his friends get crushed under a mech with blood leaking out, and the kid himself eventually finds the mech to pilot, saving his life in the process, all while this epic music is playing in the background. Like I said, I had never experienced such scenes in the game before. Although now that I'm older and have seen more media, I know that the intro is basically a ripoff of the original Gundam episode, but whatever, it doesn't change the scene and the zone at the end is for me. But getting back on topic, I played that demo at least 30 times as a kid, but I never got the chance to play the full game until 2016. And believe it or not, I actually find it kinda meh now. As a game, at least. The cinematography and presentation are top notch, as Kojima's works usually are, but the game itself leaves much to be desired. The gameplay quickly got boring with only 3 or 4 types of enemies to fight, and the story is nothing short of absolutely terrible. None of this changes my memories of playing the demo as a child, but it's almost funny in the way how me looking at the game today without nostalgia glasses on my head changed my opinion of it. Every so often the game comes out of nowhere and just skyrockets in popularity, being heralded as an instant classic and garnering a cult following. Five Nights at Freddy's, Psychonauts, Xenoblade Chronicles, all games that fit this mold, but I've rarely seen a new game that was on nobody's radar come out and gain just the sheer admiration and attention that Undertale did in 2015. It was all gamers on social media and YouTube could talk about, and after seeing YouTuber HeyDocs call it possibly the greatest game he's ever played, I had to play it for myself to see what the hype was about. And to my immense surprise, I was not disappointed in the slightest. Undertale is truly one of the most unforgettable games I've ever had the pleasure to experience. I won't even go into detail of the plot because it's something that shouldn't be explained to you, but something you really should experience on your own. I love the soundtrack to the point I put it on my top 15 soundtracks of all time video. The final boss and the route I took in the game will probably haunt me in the back of my mind for the rest of my life. I can't say for sure whether Undertale will have the same effect on everyone that it had on me, but I can say with confidence that's a game every gamer should at least give a try. The first of the 3 Super Robot Wars games I completed for the first time in 2016, J is a game that I've actually attempted to beat multiple times over the past decade. Either something would happen to my save data or I'd simply lose interest, but 2016 was the year I finally did it, partially because I felt the time was perfect due to J being revitalized in the then upcoming new OG game, and I say the game was well worth the wait. For those poor souls that may not know what a Super Robot Wars game even is, it's a crossover of mecha anime ranging from any and every Gundam you can think of, Evangelion, Code Geass, Gurren Lagann, Voltron, and the list just goes on and on. This particular entry is the best looking entry on the Game Boy Advance, which made it easy to get back to. Heck, I say J is one of the best looking GBA games period in terms of animation. I chose Toyo's route, taking control of the whiny Shinji from Evangelion wannabe, as he's put into a mech he never wanted to pilot and has to protect 3 mysterious girls and eventually save the world. Not the most unconventional plot ever, but it got the job done. Good character interactions between all the anime involved, awesome music, and some of the best sprite action you'll get out of a 32-bit game. J pushed the GBA to its limits and has aged very well. I'd even recommend it as a starting point in the series for newcomers. Now we're moving on to Super Robot Wars BX for the 3DS, and I wasn't sure what to expect going into this one. I played but did not complete the predecessor to this game, UX, earlier in 2016, and I wasn't sure if BX could differentiate itself enough from the game that came before it. But to my immense pleasure, it did just that. It took the engine that the handheld games have been using since J and really tried to take it a step further. Sprites look cleaner than ever before, the entire game was 60 frames per second, and some of the animations are the best I've seen in the entire Super Robot Wars series, handheld or no. Add a great cast of shows and units on top, and BX is one of my favorite entries in the series to date. The third and final Super Robot Wars game I beat in 2016, Moon Dwellers, was also one of my most anticipated games of the year, as I'm sure some of you know. It was the first game in the series I ever Let's Played on the channel. I streamed the entire game on Twitch, and it was more importantly the first Super Robot Wars game officially in English in over a decade. Now, the translation was far from perfect, but it was good enough to where you got the complete story, or the little references here and there, and the plethora of jokes and shenanigans are the norm in the OG series, so I'm more than satisfied with it. Now, as the game itself, Moon Dwellers wasn't the greatest entry in the series. The vast majority of the animations are carried straight from the prequel, OG second, and it's a bit on the short side, but I still enjoyed the time I spent playing the game. I always wanted to play a Super Robot Wars game on the channel, talking about it with my fellow veterans of the series and introducing newcomers with no idea that the series existed. And I got to do exactly that with Moon Dwellers. The Pokemon trading card game video game is a game that I've easily put over 200 hours in and at least 15 playthroughs over the course of my life. It's one of my favorite childhood games and has truly not aged today, but I've never actually been able to beat it until earlier in 2016. It was actually unintentional when I did it too. I was doing a test stream on YouTube and decided to play it when I was at the Elite Four. Took them on just to see what types of decks they had, and I somehow ended up winning the entire league and beating the game for the first time ever. If not for my capture card being stupid and disconnecting repeatedly during the whole ordeal, it would have been an amazing moment for me this past year. Beating the game made me realize that Nintendo and Game Freak missed a massive opportunity not releasing these games anymore, like the Yu-Gi-Oh games in their almost yearly entries. But until Nintendo decides to hop on a potential money train that has more TCG video games that aren't the current PC one, I'll stick to this game. Also, shout out to Articuno for being the MVP of my Elite Four run. Couldn't have won without it. For anyone that doesn't know me too well, I am a massive Fire Emblem fan. I played every game in the series except for 3ACS 776 and Gaiden as of this video, and most of the games I've played I've beaten multiple times, so my hype was through the roof for Fire Emblem Fates. And after playing all three paths, I have to say that I overall enjoyed the experience, but it overall didn't live up to my expectations of what I come to both expect and love from the series. To elaborate a bit more on each individual experience, I felt the Nord path was the strongest in terms of plot and map design and closest to what I wanted. The Hoshido path failed in almost every aspect, and the Revelations path was somewhere in between the other two paths. The Nord path was undoubtedly the most interesting to play through as you sided with the villain of the game, although of course you were trying to undermine him and didn't agree with his goals. And the map design in this path is easily the best and most creative the series has ever seen. Siding with Hoshido made the plot way too safe. Nothing was surprising, the map design was too plain, and worst of all, for a video game, it was boring. And as I said before, the third path, Revelations, fell somewhere in between the first two. Map design was passable, although the final few chapters had some of the worst and most rage-inducing map design I've ever seen in a game. Seriously, screw those maps and screw whatever assholes at Intelligent Systems designed them. The plot for Revelations had potential, as it had your character choosing to side with neither family, even if it eventually just has you recruiting the characters from both sides, which also therein lies a big problem I had with this third path. A lot, if not most of these maps are just saving random characters from generic situations to get them onto your side. I felt this should have just been regulated to chapters that had nothing to do with the main plot, since having it as the main plot made it so that there were few chapters that were focused on an overarching narrative. But alas, I do not regret the 60 hours I spent with Fire Emblem Fates. The soundtrack was overall amazing and it introduced some of my favorite characters in all of Fire Emblem. Yes, I complained about 2 of the 3 paths, but I still say that Fates was a nice addition to the series. Not the game I wanted overall, but still a nice addition. Growing up as a kid, I mainly had a Nintendo 64 and later a GameCube as my only consoles of choice to play the newest games on. As such, there were many games in the series I wanted on PS2 and Xbox that I simply didn't have access to at the time. One of those games was the original Monster Hunter on PS2. I remember seeing it featured on G4, you know, back when G4 was actually worth watching, and I never got my chance to play it for myself until Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate on the Wii U. I was addicted and decided that I was all in with the series from then on, and I would have probably been addicted to 4 Ultimate as well if the R button on my original 3DS wasn't broken. And for those that don't know, the R button is used to both run and block in Monster Hunter, so yeah, I kinda missed out on 4 Ultimate. But let's skip forward to 2016, where I have a new 3DS and Monster Hunter Generations is coming out. I got the game on release and I actually didn't really delve into it until a few months later when I had friends to play it with. And the times we spent playing were truly some of my favorite moments of 2016. Raising our hunter ranks together, finding new monsters and taking them down, crafting new armors and weapons, finding that one rare item we need to finish an armor set or a really powerful weapon, all great moments I experienced with this game. Honestly, Generations is far from a perfect game. I probably wouldn't have liked it all that much if I had played it alone, but that doesn't change the fact that I sunk 100 hours into it within a couple of months and had a lot of great memories because of it. Can't wait to do it again with the next Monster Hunter game. Overwatch is my favorite shooter of all time. I tried this game pretty much on a whim. I knew it existed and I liked the cartoony aesthetic, so I gave the open beta a try, and I instantly fell in love. 23 characters all with their own unique playstyles, personalities, and backstories, and I've come to love them all. Blizzard definitely nailed that one more game mentality with Overwatch, as I can recall many an occasion where I planned to play 2 or 3 games and ended up playing 10. As of this video, I put over 100 hours into the game and I'm not even remotely close to being done with it. During the development process, Blizzard put an emphasis on everything in the final product of the game being fun. If it wasn't deemed fun, it didn't make it into the game. After playing so much of Overwatch, I say they accomplished this well. Overwatch would have been my game of the year if it wasn't for this next game. The biggest and most pleasant surprise for myself in 2016 for games was of course Pokemon Sun and Moon. For those that followed me this past year, you'll know that I was kinda skeptical going into Gen 7. I was a bit burned out on Pokemon and didn't have faith that Game Freak had it in them to shake out the formula the series was known for. But I gotta hand it to them, they proved me wrong. Not only were Sun and Moon great Pokemon games, they made Generation 7 hands down my favorite generation ever. They got rid of gyms, they gave new life to old Pokemon with Alolan forms, the game put an emphasis on characters and story, and the Alola region is just brimming with culture and a sense of community with its residents I've never seen from a region prior. All these things and more breathe new life into a series I've always loved, but was getting a bit bored with. Sun and Moon were hands down my games of the year. I can't wait to see how Game Freak outdo themselves with Generation 8. So yes, those are all the games I beat this past year. For all the time I spend playing games, it actually isn't too many, and that's mainly because I spend a lot of time going from one game to another game, then back to that game, and it just gets to the point where my backlog just keeps piling on and piling on. So that's something I'm trying to fix this year in 2017, but we'll see how that goes. Anyways, leave your thoughts down in the comment section, and also any or all games you beat this past year, I'd love to know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.